Hello, welcome back. Right, still life at my mother's in Chingola. I've talked a bit about life in general with my mother, and then I've talked about school, the kind of things and clubs I got involved in school. Right, I talked to you about the kind of change that happened to me while I was living with my mother. I think I came to a point in my life there that I decided I was going to be fearless, and that was I would do what I wanted, how I wanted, when I wanted, obviously, as long as my mother wasn't around. And if she doesn't see what's happening, and then, she can't know. She can't know. And my mother, she never used to be at home all the time. So she was an unmarried mother, obviously, because she had me with my father, and that was just a fling, whatever it was. I talked about that earlier on in this story. And then she remarried. I think she had quite a few boyfriends. And those were like acceptable. They actually visited my grandmother. They would bring her food, the stuff that I talked about from towns and that sort of thing. And, we knew them as the intended for my mother, so to speak. But nothing had sort of materialized. But what I know that is she was married to my siblings' father. That's how she had these 3 children, Kumbi, Gloria, and Gift. I think they all had Zimbabwean names, but I can't remember who's who. But Kumbi, hers stayed. So Kumbi basically is short for Kumbirai. And Gloria, I don't know whether it was Gloria or the other one. I think maybe Gloria was called Chiratizo or something. I'm not quite sure, but one of them was Chiratizo, and I can't remember the other one. So for a while, we actually knew them with their English and their Zimbabwean names. There was 3 names, but I can't remember. I just remember Kumbirai and Chiratizo. So she was married to this man. I don't know if I ever met him, because I think he may have been. I don't remember seeing him, but I think he may have either been there, or he'd already left when I was 3 and I was visiting in Kabwe, because my memories say that she was living with him when she was in Kabwe. They lived together in Kabwe, so I suppose he may have been there, or he was just away somewhere. But he was also a police officer. They worked together as policemen, police people. And the news or the story is of how he disappeared. He too disappeared, and he sort of disappeared into nothing. And I'm not quite sure how. There's an awful lot of secrecy going on in it sometimes, and I think it's just bizarre. There's, even for me at this age, some things are never explained to me, and those secrets are maintained. I don't think my siblings know exactly where their father is, or I don't know what story they've been given. But having said that, I shouldn't even claim to know anything, because there's an awful lot that goes conspiring against me that I have never known, and that I've subsequently quite got to find out. I'm this age and I was still trying to push myself to be accepted. And I learned the hard way. But anyway, that will be said at another point. But for now, I'm saying that my mother was a single woman because she wasn't married. And from what I remember, her husband had disappeared, the police officer, and apparently he had disappeared after he was arrested. I don't know what came into him, because he apparently after work had gone back. There was a police club where policemen used to go and socialize and, drink and play games and play machines, slots or whatever. And yeah, he thought, and he apparently had gone back to the police club and broke into the machine slot to see how much money he could steal. And apparently there was only one ngwe in there. So I think whoever stitched up my father to have all this business for him to be arrested and eventually deported may have had something to do with what happened to my sibling's father, because the story is not the same but much similar. But for him to go break this big gambling machine and to just steal one ngwe, and he was caught with one ngwe in his hand after he'd broken the machine. And of course then he was arrested. But what happened to him after that? Surely he should have been, or whether he too was deported, or whether he was deported immediately or what, I don't know. But for him to have been working for the Zambian police, I suppose he was Zambian. So what happened? His name was Chibende. That was his, the surname, but I don't know what his first name was. I think I used to know it, it's just I can't remember it now. So then my mother was by herself since then, and she sort of dated quite a few people. I remember this man called Edwin. She dated years and years ago, and quite chubby man, and obviously ate well. He used to bring my grandma, like a whole goat, instead of buying the meat and say, here's the goat, someone slaughter it for you, that sort of thing. And so yeah, I remember that, Edwin. And I think there was, I don't know what happened between them. It obviously finished, because by the time I was there living with her, it was just her. But her way of life was, after work, she'd come home, eat, and go out again. And when she went out again, she used to belong to the Lottery Club, the Lions Club, and she was one of the leaders or had some kind of a role there. So she was always in their meetings and that sort of thing. And she was actually very helpful to an awful lot of people in the communities. She had a name for herself for being a charitable person, because she was the one that was engineering lots of charity work among these people. So, that was one of the things she used to do. But one other thing that she used to do was she would go out, just clubbing, I suppose, and didn't come back home till very late. She always had some kind of function, as she called them. I've got a function. Always had some kind of function every evening. Sometimes she came home to eat and get ready. Sometimes she didn't even come home until much later. I think she may have had a wardrobe in her office where she could just shower and change and go. And she used to do this a lot. So that gave me an opportunity to do my own thing. Because if I didn't have to worry about her coming back at whatever time, then I would do what I wanted and make sure that I was home. And she's none the wiser that I've actually been out and about doing my own thing that I probably shouldn't be doing. If she found out, she'd probably kill me. So yeah, and I sort of use those opportunities to mingle and mix with my boyfriend. This was a wanted relationship. This was a relationship where I suppose I call it my first love. I call it my first love because although I remember back when in the village, when I used to go to my mother's father during the times when we had Baskop, there was this boy who had come from town. I think his name was Freddie. And Freddie walked with a bounce, and Freddie spoke Nyanja and Bemba, and I just fell in love with him because, when he walked with a bounce, that was like, wow, how stylish. It was because if anyone in the village tried to walk with a bounce, they would look like they've got a sore bottom or something like that. It was just awkward. But for him, it just flew. It just looked so good. So I was like, oh, I just love him. So I suppose, I didn't know the relationship then, but I came to find out that he was actually my mother's cousin. I think his mother and my grandfather, they were related. So anyway, maybe this was my second love, although it didn't feel like that. It felt like my first love. I mean, I definitely would never have thought I would go back to Freddie and have him, no matter what state he was in. I didn't have those feelings because those are the feelings I had with this particular man. His name was Lucky Kakumi. Lakson Kakumi. So we called him Lucky. And it was this one afternoon, actually, and because I didn't have makeup, I didn't have anything, that I could say I could be proud of. For starters, although I had a bed, I had my own room. On my bed, there was just the plain mattress, the foam type mattress. It didn't have a cover on it. And I had the police issue grey blanket, which if you didn't cover yourself with anything else before you put it on, it itched you. So it took a long time to fall asleep. So I got used to that. That's all I had on my bed. And I'll tell you another time, I used to get embarrassed because eventually I did make some friends. And when I went to their house, I did make more friends. When I went to their house and we went into their room, and the way they just lived, the way they mingled in their house, it was not like how I did. So anyway, I'll tell you a bit more about that. But anyway, what happened is, so I was outside on this, under the tree. On one side of the garden, we had mango trees, and then on the other side there was just these ordinary trees that we called ambikamdodo, and they had little pods, like when you open these pods, they're like fluffy on the spiky on the outside, but the spikes were not like thorns that jabbed you. And when you open them, inside was these seeds. So these seeds were, if you rub them in your hands, they were red. So we used them as brusher, as powder. You made up your face with this stuff, and it looked quite good, like you were using real makeup. So I was outside. We were outside there doing this ambikam dodo, getting them, and you have to get them depending as they are green when they start, and then they go about reddish brown. When they're green, they're like just whitish inside, so they're no color really. And we were trying to figure out whether if they're not so ripe, if they're not so red, or if they're a certain kind of ripeness. That is when they're still very soft and flesh, and you can actually like scoop the softness and use that for your lipstick. And where these trees were, when you look, you saw the ahead is the police station. And every break time, the police officers used to just pile up on the outside there, chatting, messing around, play fighting and that kind of thing. And at that moment, I turned my head to look, and there was this police officer walked out, and I went, "Oh my Gideon, isn't he gorgeous?" And I just, whoa! I thought, who is that? And unbeknown to me that he too, when he turned around to look and he saw me, he thought, who is she? Wow. So, obviously we didn't hear each other's thoughts, although we obviously reacted the same way to each other. Love at face side and both sides too. It was like, way. Anyway, so, my sister Gloria goes, "Oh, yeah, I think that's Kakumi or something like that." And I said, "Oh, you know him?" "Oh, yeah, I know him." And I have no idea whether my sister did say, this is my sister Gloria, because at the time when I actually was living with my mother, my sister Kumbi was living in the village. And up to now, my sister Kumbi will swear to you, because they actually talk the reasoning. This is the thing. I never had anyone to engage in any kind of small talk, or to discuss with me what's happening, or to seek my opinion, or to explain their opinion, or to do, it's either right or it's wrong. It's a do or die. And any other talk or any other explanations about anything, it was never done with me. So, if you want something, it was one word to ask for it, or one way to pass a message, and that's the end of it. There was no other discussions. But obviously there was discussions with my sister Kombi, whether because she's very attached to her mother, she could ask or she could challenge. She must have said, "Why am I going?" or whatever has happened. And apparently, eventually, my sister Kombi had said to me that because she was accused of having sexual relations with a neighbor next door, And but for punishment, she sent Kumbi to live in the village and had me to come and live in town. So we swapped over. But unfortunately, I didn't have the relationship with my mother, and the relationship my sister Kumbi had with her. So I'm not quite, well, I lost my train of thought now. But anyway, so I didn't know how to sort of find out or do anything or discuss anything. But I'm not quite sure also whether it's my sister Gloria that had went and discussed or said something, because that was just beyond me. You don't do that. But she must have, because she one day, I think it must have been only a day or two after that, or was it that same day? I'd gone in the house. I'd picked up my Ambikam Dodo and I had my bath, and then I was making my face up. And when I came out, my sister Gloria says, "You've got a letter." And I said, "How do you know?" She says, "I was sitting here and he called me." I said, "All right." And he gave me the letter. He says, "Will she give it to her?" So I went and I read this letter and I was like, "Oh, he wants to go out with me." And so I wrote, and I don't know what I said, but obviously I agreed. I agreed. So my sister Gloria took it, and then what happened was, when he knew where my mother was all the time, because the police officers knew. So what would happen is he would phone, and you knew that our phone was an extension from the police station. So it had a different kind of ringing tone to an outside incoming call. So he went to pick it up, and I think the letter said something about, "I'll be ringing you in the next whatever minute," or something. So I went and I picked up the phone, and he said, "Listen, I'm working until whatever time he said." He was like until 4 o'clock or something like that, and I'm working again tomorrow. So basically giving me his shift pattern. But I'm finishing. I'm doing a night shift, and then I'll be home in the morning on such and such a day. Fancy meeting up, and where do you live, and shall we walk there together, something like that. So I said, okay, so let me know, on that day, because I suppose, I don't think I was in school or something, whatever happened, or either that or I decided I wasn't going to go for whatever reason. But I don't think I ever missed school for any other reason. I always did go. So I must have been off. It must have been a day off, or maybe it was a weekend or something. I don't know. But my mother is always out. And so morning she's gone to work. And if I wasn't in school, it's my time. I mean, especially after when at one point she stopped working at the Chiwimpala police station, which was right in front of our house. She was working in town. So it was better that way, because she didn't know, she was busy working in town and doing other duties elsewhere, away from watchful eye of anyone or earshot of anything. What was going on at Chiwimpala, nobody knew, because my mother wasn't there. So anyway, I must have gone with him. I really cannot remember the first date or anything, but obviously he was the love of my life. I mean, even up to today. Over the years, I thought if I could find him, it doesn't matter if I found he was a tramp and he had lost his marbles, also I'll just pick him up and clean him and look after him. That is how much I really loved him. And so I went to his house, and I don't know what we talked about, but that was my first proper consensual sexual relations that I had. And it didn't bother me that no one had ever talked to me about how to please a man. And I thought, I'm sure I'll learn about it eventually. But yeah, that kept going on. It went on Form 1, I don't know whether I wasn't in Form 1 or was I? I think I was. Form 2, Form 3, bang, I got pregnant. I suppose the minute I was mature enough. And I was barely 14, 15. And at that time, my mind had completely switched off from school, because, I got fed up of listening and hearing these voices putting me down and me cowering. So I just thought to myself, right, I found things I like. I like being with him. I like doing club things. I didn't have it in me to concentrate on schoolwork. I just couldn't. So I never concentrated on schoolwork. I was daydreaming in class, and the first time I actually experienced proper consensual sex, I was just thinking, when can I see him again? It was like, now I know there's something different to this act. So, I just never concentrated in school. And I think in between there was something had happened where I think they were going to shut down my Teneke special for some reason. I'm not quite sure what. I think there was a call to duty for cadets, and we belong to the Maitenege contingent, and we'd done a lot of work with the army. And so there was this man who was like a magician who was opposing the government, or wanting to overthrow the government. And he was known as Mushala, the magician, because you could be looking at him 1 minute and the next minute he disappears. And you think, what happened? Where is he? And he was very feared. So the government decided that every army officer and every cadet, they are going to go and find him and fight him. And on that day that we were supposed to go, I actually packed my bags, did my uniform, got myself ready, had my army rucksack, and went, and everybody in my contingent was there, but obviously, because there was just the one teacher who was our commander, who was doing the cadet, and he wasn't going to be doing it seriously, although some of us were very serious. But when it came to calling us for this duty, my contingent couldn't go ahead with it, because Mr. Smay was nowhere to be seen when the army truck came to pick us up to take us to war. And for some reason he was, they eventually said that they're going to shut down that school. So what happened was when we went back to school the next time after the failed attempt to go to war, he said to us, he picked Diana and myself, and he said, you are supposed to go and do a test at Chingola. If you pass this, and you're my two best students, he said you can go and start going to Chingola even before you wait for Form 3. So we went, and I remember sitting, the two of us, writing this exam. Diana is busy writing. I'm just quiet, and I'm just doodling something. I think I was drawing hearts on the corner of the exam paper. I was drawing hearts on the corner of the exam paper. And when the term finished, this man came in. He finished now? I said, yes. So we stood up and left. I had written nothing on mine. There was all drawing on each corner of little hearts. And of course, Diana did well, and she went off to Chingola, and our friendship sort of dwindled from then on, because she's off to do, grand and better things. And I was just thinking about what kind of wife I would be for Lucky. And oh my gosh, from the person who used to be so ill and wanting to read and do well in the village, I just lost something there. I lost that. I completely lost it. I just didn't have any desire. I was just daydreaming now about my next thing was to be married to Lucky. So, Lucky, he was, I think I was also his lover, because, he, bless him, he only got paid, £80 a month in those days. And he shared his police house with, another new recruit, Mike Kaleva. And, they didn't, their money was theirs. So whatever they were paid was just to buy food and their clothes and whatever else. But they didn't have to pay bills, and they didn't have to pay rent and that kind of thing. and he would get, he got paid 80 kwacha, which was equivalent to £80 a month, and he would give me 40. So I buy myself perfumes, I buy myself creams, I buy myself makeup, and I kept it in a drawer, and thinking that if it's not on the chest of drawers, my mother won't see it, so she won't query about where did you get the money to buy this. But she obviously knew where it was. And although she still kept putting me down about smelling bad and doing that and having all that kind of thing, one day I caught her in my drawer, opened my drawer, and was spraying herself with my perfume. But I never thought to myself, oh, so does that mean that I don't smell bad anymore? But she still said it to me. She still, throw me out and say, you get out of here, that kind of thing. And I quickly left her, but I'm sure she'd known I'd seen her, so I didn't say anything. And I was terrified of she's going to question me about where did you get that stuff. And she never questioned. And I'm very sure I'm quite sure now that she also knew that I was, leaving the house when she wasn't around. If she wasn't there for a whole week, I'll be living in the police camp with my lucky, and I never used to come the same way that everybody else does, because everybody else, there was a path that comes from the police station and into the camp. I used to have to get out of the police camp, a different direction altogether, so that nobody knows me. I walk as if, there was no path. I had to walk in the bushes and sort of go across. I had to go, I had to find a hole in the fence. I hadn't made that fence, and God forbid, really, I was so lucky because that was an electric fence, but things were starting to dwindle with the mines, and that fence had been tampered with, so I was lucky I could just get through this hole without getting electrocuted. And I actually didn't fathom that was an electric fence at the time. And I would walk along the fence, and then towards where we'd made a hole to give them, the marketeers, the bags of cabbage, and I would use that hole to come back in. So I would look like just I was walking from the servants' quarters rather than I'd come all the way from the police camp. And, everything about school and everything, wanting to do well at school, that had gone, and I was just daydreaming about being a wife. And by that time, we had this girl, Dorothy Smango, who had come to live with us because her father had been transferred somewhere else, and she'd been in, I think, Form 3 or something like that. Or she was, and she went to Chingola Secondary. And so she was at a stage in her life where she couldn't move because she had exams soon after. Soon, a few months, maybe 6 months down the road, because it seemed like we were living together for a whole year, maybe 2 even. So that is what had happened. And she was sharing a room with my sister Gloria, and they were the ones with a better room. And when I mean a better room, the room it had a nice chest of drawers. On their beds, they had the linen and they had pillows. So it was a proper made bed, like the kind I slept on when I lived at my father's, and like the kind that we all sleep on nowadays that I know of. When I say we all, some of us in a certain way of life. It was a bed with a sheet at the bottom, a sheet inside, not an itchy blanket on top, and the pillow and a bed cover that looked nice. So it was and a pillow and a pillowcase. I didn't have a pillow. I had just a mattress that didn't have a cover on it. And when I mean mattress, it was like a memory foam type mattress, and just that on there, and an itchy police issue grey blanket. When I say police issue, they were the blankets you found in prisons. And my mother had, I'm not quite sure what she did. She used to bring some of these things back home, and that's what she had thrown to me for a blanket. But in Gloria and Dorothy's bedroom, everything looked quite nice. So if they had friends, and they kept, and bearing in mind Dorothy was older than me, and Gloria is my younger sister, the third born. So I would have thought, actually, if Dorothy was going to make friends with anyone, she would have made friends with me. But she made friends with Gloria. They shared a bed together, and they had the better facilities in their room, and they had communications together. Whenever I walked in, they kept quiet. When I walked out, they giggled. So, you see, the discrimination of everyone that I came across, was the same. They all knew something. They could all engage in a conversation and small talk, something I didn't know. Because, to be honest, if I was looking for someone for a purpose, and I knock on the door, I would ask, is such and such around? If they say no, I just turned around and I went. I didn't say, oh, all right. I wanted to give them a message and carry on with that conversation and say, if you see them, do this. That was never in my agenda. That I didn't know that you could do that. All right, that person is not there, so go back. You don't have to say anything else. And it was the same on the phone. If I picked up the phone and phoned someone, oh, hi, is such and such there? No, they're not. Oh, and that's it. I hung up. And the other person is like, gosh, what was that about? That's rude. Well, I don't know. That means that I've behaved rudely, or I don't know how I behaved badly, because I've done what I wanted to do. I've asked for that person. They're not there, and they're not there. So what can I say? Nothing. I didn't think you could say anything else. Ah, right. Gosh, look at this. It's gone 31 minutes. All right. And I'm not quite sure whether I just waffled through there, but I'll listen to this and see how it goes, and I'll tell you what comes next.